person this year will get a little extra bonus or something. But it's a lot of great honor. My esteemed brother-in-law, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Lauh. He is the dean of the largest Lubavitch yeshiva in Crown Heights. Wow. From age below kindergarten till 20 years old. And then many of the Talmidim go on to places in the world, something called shluchus, and help various communities. Eventually, when they get married, help communities once they're married, and dedicate their lives to being ambassador of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, spreading Chassidus and Torah and Mashiach. So he happened to be the dean of, I lost track, but thousands of students. And Baruch Hashem, it's the first time I've had him come. It's very hard to get to Florida to go to class. So I thought, I see one student's already.
10 to 15.
I see.
Okay, so this is, by the way, a very attentive audience. They sound like
unbelievable.
So without, sometimes when Rabbi Shapiro gives a shir here, he says, "My guys, they just here because their parents sent them. But these guys, they all want to be in yeshiva. It's like he loves it. He said, I would take you any day over my two boys." So without any further ado, Rabbi Menachem Lauh. Thank you.
In the Haggadah, we say, amongst the lines of Dayenu, we say, Ilu kervanu lifnei har Sinai. If God would bring us to the Mount of Sinai, v'loi nasa lanu es ha-Torah, even if we wouldn't receive the Torah, Dayenu. That itself is sufficient. That itself would have been a tremendous milestone. There's a lot of commentaries how to understand that, because what would be the purpose? In other words, what is the purpose of coming to Mount Sinai that would mark a milestone if it wasn't the Torah? That's not the subject of today's talk, but the line came to mind when I was driving with Rabbi Storfer and I saw how pressured he is. On one hand, he was and this was beautiful to see, he was feeling very concerned to take away shooting time, and on the other hand, he wants to share. And I said, Rabbi Storfer, to come visit the yeshiva, even if we don't do a shir, Dayenu. And when I walked in and I see the energy, I feel the energy, I say the double, Dayenu. We can stop right over here. We don't need to say much more. But in honor of my brother-in-law, who asked me to share just a few words, or asked me to share a few words, and I said I'll keep it to just a few. There's, in this week's parsha, we learn about Yaakov's passing. What everyone knows is that even though it's the Yaakov's passing, we call it Vayichi Yaakov. It's Yaakov's life, it's Yaakov's legacy. One of the most often referred to ideas that we learn from Yaakov, Jacob, going down to Mitzrayim, is the idea that before he stepped foot into Mitzrayim, he was very reluctant. You see that when you learn the Torah study, he was very reluctant to go down there. But the first thing, Ves Yehuda Shalach Lefanav Goishna, he sent Yehuda in front of him, and what do the Chazal tell us? His first thing is, if we're going to go to Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim resembled the Miami Beach of the world, right? It's not the most natural, spiritual place that most people are awakened. But I mean, again, some people, but so when you're going to go down to Mitzrayim, and he wants to continue to raise his children by Yiddish values, what he saw at the core was, he sent Yehuda in front of him. Yehuda, open a yeshiva. Because if we have a yeshiva, we can be in Miami Beach, and the yeshiva is going to thrive, and the people are going to thrive from their learning. So in other words, while many people felt that in order to succeed in learning, you have to be in some secluded island, somewhere in the woods, find some island near India, and that's the only place where you'll be able to meditate and have some sort of spiritual awakening. What Yaakov was reluctant, but once he realized it's God's will, and the path forward, he's going to have to spend some time in Mitzrayim. What he saw is a simple thing. If I have a yeshiva, we are going to influence Mitzrayim. If I don't have a yeshiva, Mitzrayim is going to define who I am. And it's just going to become part of the cultural melting pot. When I was on the plane, on my way here, so I was sitting near a fantastic gentleman. He's running a startup company, and he tells me it baffles his mind. He's dealing with the situation going on in Israel and anti-Semitism throughout the world. So he has like a company crisis, which is not unique to him, but it was interesting to hear about it firsthand. He has many Israeli clients. And today in the era of LinkedIn, so people's name shows up, and shows up where they work. Now he runs this data financial service for many Israeli clients. He happens to have many brilliant computer programmers in Pakistan. And he says that what they're sharing online is unreal, is indescribable. The lowliness. Now, part of the concern is obviously, I'm not going to deny, part of the concern that he was sharing with me is, how does it not hurt his company? Because when someone sees it, whatever it is, imagine you saw that 20 Amazon workers or the chief technology officer of Amazon is posting anti-Israel hatred. Well, you might say, you know what, I don't want to do business with them. Let me find someone else. So his first crisis, so to speak, is he wants his company to survive this climate. So he's trying to think how to deal with it. But then he was sharing with me, he's like, it baffles my mind. The guy is brilliant. He's brilliant. But he's so corrupt. How does that happen? How does that happen? For somehow we would want to associate that a guy that got a good education probably has good values and good standards.
Because he wasn't educated in Tel Aviv.
Okay.
I love that.
Very good. I don't know if Tel Aviv would be much better, but let's say in the yeshiva of Tel Aviv.
I'm sure it would. They'll help him with...
I love that.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So to put it in a nutshell, and perhaps another opportunity, we can go much more at length. What everyone understands at the core of our entire life and what's going to shape us as people is going to be the education. And the education that we get and what we internalize shapes us, guides us, and informs the way we go about. This is why, as soon as the climate in the world started shifting towards very challenging times, is when more and more people saw the need that a child should attend a yeshiva. Back in the day, there were many years where yeshiva was something that was only for a select few. Not just college education. Today in America, you have a big argument, college for all, not college for all, community college, should college cost money? Maybe it should be like public schools. But everyone across the country, and in any developed country, understand that education in the formative years is the right of everyone. A few hundred years ago, it wasn't the case. But let's talk specifically in the Jewish world from the Jewish perspective. Today, being in yeshiva is not just a luxury. It's a necessity to gain first-hand knowledge. How does Torah inform the way we're going to live? Now, if we had more time, I'm just going to throw it in a nutshell, then we'll daven mincha. There were different shifts in different times, and different yeshivas were opened up to meet the need of the generation. So the first Chabad yeshiva that was opened up, not just for, the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad rabbi, had a yeshiva, but it was a yeshiva for adults, for married people, that already mastered the entire Talmud, and he had 3 different elite groups. The first yeshiva that was opened up, not for everyone, but more broad, with a much broader mandate, was Tomchei Tmimim by the Rebbe Rashab. Then, from there were multiple versions of this yeshiva under his son, Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak, who's often referred to by the Yiddish name, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe. Now, I'm going to skip all the way fast forward to the previous Rebbe when he came to America. When he came to America, one of his most famous statements, which later became coined, was his statement that when he came here and he said, America is no different. In Yiddish, America is nicht anders. He saw a bunch of people that were afraid to grow a beard. He saw many people that were afraid to close their store on Shabbos. He was coming from Russia and Poland, saw the destruction firsthand of what communism managed to do in erasing the Jewish consciousness and awareness from a full generation. And he declared he's coming to America, and America's not going to be different. We're going to be able to live like real authentic Yidden. Now, there was one major challenge that the Frierdiker Rebbe dealt with pertaining to childhood education. And that was in the year 1952. You can look it up. There's other things that went on then as well. Different communities handled the challenge. There were multiple yeshivas, and the standard for most yeshivas were that they started the day with Kodesh studies, so prayer, Chumash, Gemara, Talmud. The afternoon is when they had general studies in America. And that was already considered good, because at least you were giving your child more than just a Hebrew day school or Sunday school. You were giving your child some Kodesh studies, and it was in the morning. The State Department came under pressure by a certain amount of people that they got to reverse it. You have to make it law that the day's got to start with secular general studies, and then if there's extra time, after 1, 2 o'clock, whatever it is, you want to learn a little Talmud, go ahead. But the day's got to start. Some people felt, all right, so what's the difference? You learn it in the morning, you learn it in the afternoon. We'll pray quickly, we'll learn general studies. What's the difference? So we'll have Talmud class in the afternoon. Is it just that the head is not as clear? That's not what it is. So the previous Rebbe went on a very big campaign to explain and to raise awareness that it's not just a question of 2 equal parts. Here, it's a question that's going to be in the morning or the afternoon. If yeshiva is learning Talmud just as a subject, right? And the core of the yeshiva is about the general studies, that yeshiva will not produce the children of Jacob. It will not be effective in an era and a climate in Mitzrayim, in America. It won't be effective. Why? Why not? What's the issue? So, to put it in a nutshell, I don't know if you read the book by the New York Times writer, I think it was Banks. Where he talks about, his name is skipping my head for a second, but he talks about the 2 virtues. There are resume virtues, and there are eulogy virtues. You ever read it? Sounds familiar? Very wonderful contrast to think about for a minute. Because most of our life is you're going to graduate yeshiva, and what do we all need? We all need a job. And we should pursue a job. And a good job, and make a lot of money. And support Torah. And support many Jewish minorities. Of course. There's nothing holier than having a good job and dedicating yourself and making a difference and an impact. But there's a difference in the way our culture worships resume values throughout a person's childhood and life. And then so from a little child, we're worried, let me sign this child up to Montessori school because I heard that a Montessori school that allows the child to develop his creativity, these are the schools that are going to produce the next generation's billionaires. So the child's 3 years old. What am I worried about? I want the child to be wealthy. I want the child to be wealthy. Everything else, we'll figure it out. I want the child to be wealthy. So what does the teacher tell the child that isn't listening well in math class? You're not going to get into college. You're going to fail. And you're going to fail, you're going to be poor. So the theme, the message of the school, there's a lot of good stuff going on. There's a lot of good subjects. and you can explain what's the value of math and what's the value of all the subjects. These are all necessary skills, composition. But when context is lost and what all it becomes is about the self-advancement for the sake of self, taking out the context of what we're here in this world for, what's the purpose of making money, what's the purpose of a livelihood, what's the purpose of self-sufficiency, when that's all lost, so then you have Mitzrayim and you don't have a yeshiva. So the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe, what they looked to establish, the Rebbe took it to the next level, establish yeshivas that have one message. We're going to focus on values that matter. Those eulogy virtues that the person on his deathbed is worried, if only I would have spent a little bit more time with family, if only I would have been a little kinder. No one on their deathbed is worried about, I should have stuck the guy for another $5,000 in the deal. That's just not what's on the mind. So when we're able to have that sort of consciousness when we're passing, wouldn't it be a gift to all of us if we can live with that honesty, with that level of integrity? So the goal of a yeshiva, obviously we got to learn Talmud well, and we got to learn Chumash. But more than everything else is to connect the dots and to contextualize everything. What are we learning in yeshiva? We're learning what it means to be a Yid, living in Mitzrayim, living in Galus, and instead of losing himself to the melting pot of world cultures, right? Whatever's going on TikTok or whatever else is defining the people, he's built his values so that he can go out to the world and be a shining light. Or la'amim neiris lahayr.
Even after I gave you cookies.